Do you love working with data? Have a penchant for making graphs or data visualizations? If so, I have got a challenge for you. My name is Pamela Schultz, and I want to introduce you to the 30-Day Chart Challenge. This is a community-driven event that takes place on social media, and the idea is to create 30 graphs within 30 days. Every week has a theme, and every day within that week has a particular prompt. This is actually the 5th year that the chart challenge has taken place. I myself have only created all 30 graphs back in 2021, but I'm hoping to do it again this year. The point of this challenge is really just to allow you to improve your data analysis skills, learn from others, have fun exploring some interesting data sets, and you can use whatever data sets you want and whatever tools you want to use. Just make a graph and post it on your social media page. If you're new to this channel, then welcome. This is the DataGraph channel where I demonstrate data analysis and graphing techniques using DataGraph for Mac OS. DataGraph is a no-code tool that is used by analysts, researchers, scientists all over the world. And because it's a no-code tool, you don't need to have any programming experience to use DataGraph, but it's a great tool for creating custom graphs and even animations. And if you're interested, I'll provide a link in the description of this video as to where you can get a trial for DataGraph. If you are not a DataGraph user, then I hope you're still inspired to see some of the designs that I create and use whatever tools you like to create graphs during the chart challenge. So here we go. Here is day 1 of the 30-day chart challenge. Fractions. This is the prompt for day 1, where the theme for the entire week is comparisons. And I think I was inspired to choose a topic for this first day based on the fact that I was in Iceland over winter break. And this is a time of year where there's a lot of darkness. In fact, it's a great time to take pictures of the moon, which is something I did. This is a photo I took that I was sort of proud of. But I was interested in the idea of coming up with a visualization that would show me the number of hours where we have light versus dark. And I went down a little bit of a tunnel of looking at how do you determine when there's light versus dark. And I came across some equations that you can use to calculate what's called the solar elevation angle. This is an angle that tells you where the sun is relative to the horizon. So if the angle is 0, it means that the sun is right at the horizon, either sunset or sunrise. If the angle is 90 degrees, then it means the sun is directly overhead. And if the angle is negative, then it means that you can't see the sun because the sun has set. So I was able to actually do some computation, and I wanted to show you an initial graph that I did where I have this solar elevation angle. And notice a couple of things here. So on my y-axis, sure enough, oops, I have this elevation angle. There's a latitude here. This is going to be, again, very dependent upon where you are in the globe. In fact, this latitude is where I am right now, which is Chapel Hill, North Carolina. You'll notice that there are 2 lines here and a legend that shows us that one line is for summer and one is for winter. This is the longest and the shortest day. So this is the summer solstice and the winter solstice. You can see how on the y-axis I have hours. So again, across that one day of time, this is computing this solar elevation across the entire day. So anywhere on this line where the value computed is negative, that means we're in the dark. And when the value computed is positive, that means we have sunlight. That graph is just fine for a publication, but I wanted to spruce it up quite a bit for social media. And here is the actual graph that I came up with to put on my social media site. And you'll see there's a lot of different elements that I've added here. Now, not only do you see the lines going across and changing with the time of day, but I'm also changing the point fill color to correspond to whether it's daytime or nighttime. So you can see here's the elevation angle during the summer solstice, where here's the number of hours that I have light within those hours. I'm not computing the exact amount of hours of light down to the minute or the second. This is just an approximation, but I can use what I've computed to calculate this fraction here. So here's my estimate of the number of hours with light versus the total number of hours for the summer solstice here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and here it is for the winter solstice. I added a couple of other elements here. I really like to have images when I'm posting something like this on social media. So I have a sun, I have a moon to correspond again between these, the a top being day and the night being the below numbers. The other thing here that I think really adds a bit of pop is to add this background color. And here I'm using a gradient where I chose the gradient for the top half to be a nice bright yellow corresponding to daylight, and this dark blue corresponding to nighttime. So I want to show you a couple of things of how I created this in DataGraph, and specifically what I want to show you is how do you add these gradients if this is something you want to try in one of your graphs. And what I really want to point out about this is not just the gradient, but also the fact that notice how these labels down where I have the dark blue color, I used a white color for that text. And this is really key. In fact, one of the most common mistakes, I guess, or issues I see in graphs that are in publications are that the contrast of text to background color is not large enough for people with color vision issues or vision issues even to be able to discern that text well. So this is something that I thought was important to add in this different text color. So I'll talk a little bit about that and show you again this exact file within DataGraph. Oh, and before I do that, one of the most interesting things about this again is to look at a different latitude. So this is a dynamic file that I'm going to show you, and you can see how if I go to 0 latitude at the equator, then these two lines are equal. But if I go all the way up to, let's get to around 66 degrees north, this is very close to the Arctic Circle. If I go 60 point, I believe 0.5, this is the Arctic Circle that we're within. So now we have the summer solstice being all light and the winter solstice, the sun never makes it above the horizon. Here we are now in DataGraph. This is the file that I created in order to produce these graphs. You see here's my basic line graphs, and then here is the formatted version that I just showed you. A couple of things. First of all, I wanted you to know that the DataGraph has a series of online examples. If you're new to the program, this is where you can see all sorts of examples, and we are going to be adding this file to the online examples. Have not done it yet as of the time of recording this, but I will be doing that. Uh, Another thing that's, I think, key to understand with this file, if you wanted to explore this a little bit, is how do you change the latitude? So if you wanted to explore what is the difference between the longest and shortest day in terms of hours of daylight for your location, where do you change the latitude within this file? Well, this is set up actually as an animation. So to change the latitude, you can come down here to the bottom left-hand corner where you have the animation variable. There is a slider that you can use to control this, or you can go right into this entry box and type in the exact number that you want. Next, I want to show you how I add this background gradient to my graph. And I'm going to assume that if you're watching, you have some understanding of DataGraph. If you're really new, then there's a lot of other introductory videos that are on our website. But for those of you who want to learn, how could you add a nice gradient as a background? That's what I'm going to show you now. So first of all, let's do this within the graph that is sort of the plain vanilla version right now, so you can see how this works. And what I want to do is actually to swap my view so that you can get a better view of all the commands here that control your graph. So if you go under the View menu, go to Swap Layout, and I'm going to hide the data side panel. So here this is just showing me, here's my commands. I have these two line graphs as well as this horizontal line at 0 degrees, and I want to add this gradient. I'm going to do this in the canvas settings. Expand that open, and you will see here a background, axis background, and even a foreground where you can add some type of color. This is currently set to, actually by default, I think it's usually set to 0. I had this here now, says color, but the color is just white, so you don't see anything. But if I change this color to background, now you see what I mean. All of the background now is a single color. If you want a gradient, then that's one of the options under this menu. Here, there's a horizontal gradient. You see how there's a little two arrows going up and down. You can also do gradients that are, sorry, this is the horizontal, this is the vertical. I'm going to pick the change in the vertical direction. And I also want to, then once I do that, I have this option where I can change the type of gradient. There's a couple of defaults here, but I can also do custom gradients, either 2 colors or 3 colors. I'll pick the 3-color gradient. And now you have color tiles that you can use to change what the gradient colors are. If I want a different color on the top here, again, this is my nice yellow. If I want the bottom to be maybe a bit of a darker blue, I can choose that. I think I also gave a little bit of a gray in the version that I created, my formatted version, so that there was not quite as much contrast between the two. And that's all you have to do. So this lets you customize a background gradient across your graph. Another nice feature here of this functionality is that you can also use this slider to change where the gradient transition occurs. And for me, since I shifted where the graph is using my margins down to the bottom here, I did have to use that functionality to shift where that transition is. So it corresponded roughly to where my value of 0 degrees is. What happened when I changed and added this gradient to the background is that I noticed right away I just did not have enough contrast between the text at the bottom of my graph and the background color that I chose. And this is a real key thing. I think I said it before, but I see this mistake a lot in graphs where either the text is too light or you have dark text on a dark background, and it's just not going to be easy for everyone to be able to read this. So how do I deal with that? Well, the font colors are something that I can customize. If I go into my style settings, I could change all of the font colors to a light color, but that would not be good because then I couldn't see them at the top. But what I can also do is I can change the axis font color. Now, the way that DataGraph is set up, when you do that, it will change all of the fonts in the axis to whatever color you choose, which is sort of typically what you want to do. I have kind of a unique situation here. So in my case, what I did in my final graph to get this to work is I ended up hiding the default Y numbers by unchecking the box that you see here right on the axis settings. And then what I did is I used what's called an extra axis command. This is a command that's available under the label menu. And if you want to see the specific commands within this graph that are controlling the axis, they have that same icon. And if you want to hide this, you can see exactly what on the graph this is drawing. One of them is set up to draw the top part of the range of the axis, and the other one is set up to draw the bottom part. So this is kind of a convenient thing to be aware of, that you can have an extra axis command and specify what range of data you want it to draw. Here I'm drawing from 0 to infinity, which is just whatever the end point of this axis is with this particular command, so that again I can specify the color just for this axis. Thanks so much for watching. I'd definitely be interested in what you think of my graph and what I'm creating. If you have any questions on this, you can also leave them in the comments, or I'll put a link in the description to our user forum and our help documentation that I think would be useful for you. On that note, I guess I should probably start working now on day 2. I can't promise I'm going to do a video for every day, but I'm going to at least try and do a graph for each one. Thanks so much for watching.